Good evening, everybody. I hereby call to order this regular meeting of the Board of Education of Wilmette Public Schools District 39 for Monday, June 23rd, 2014. Will the clerk please call the roll? Here.
Here.
Here. Dr. Dave Pelzet's here with some junior high students to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance this evening.
All right, good evening. So tonight we have three recent Wilmette Junior High Wolves and are now newly minted high schoolers, just went through our graduation. And what's significant about these three are they are winners of our Tri-Ship Award. Each year our 8th grade teachers, each team selects 2 members of their team who exemplify scholarship, fellowship, and citizenship, or our Tri-Ship qualities, and we award our Tri-Ship Award. This is 3 of our 8 winners. Unfortunately, vacation has consumed the other 5, so they are not able to be with us tonight, but they are here to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. So I'm going to hand it over to Finn McNulty, and then we also have Nicole Pofscher and Meredith Nasser, who's here to lead us in the Pledge.
Thanks very much. I should have said alumni. I will now seek a motion to approve the minutes of the May 15th, 2014, May 17th, 2014, and June 9th, 2014 special meetings, the May 19th, 2014 regular meeting, and May 15th, 2014, May 19th, 2014, and June 9th, 2014 executive session meetings.
I move to approve the minutes of the May 15th, 2014, May 17th, and June 9th, 2014 special meetings, the May 19th regular meeting, and the May 15th, May 19th, and June 19th executive session meetings.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Are there any comments, errors, or omissions to the minutes to note? Seeing none, all in favor of approving the minutes as submitted, please indicate by saying yay.
Yay.
Yeas have it. Motion carries by general consent. Thank you. This is our first opportunity for members of the audience to address the board. Are there any people here this evening who'd like to address the board? Sir, in the front row. And our routine is for you to state your name and address. Thank you. We'll let you know.
A few weeks ago, there were a number of letters printed in the Wilmette Beacon from 7th graders in a junior high current events class, most on the topic of the right to vote constitutional amendment that'll be on the November ballot. If you followed the community reaction, you know that the students' letters were controversial. One of the responses to them saw the assignment as an attempt by the teacher to indoctrinate the students to his or her political beliefs. I had the exact same reaction, but I wanted to see the assignment itself before drawing a conclusion. So I asked for, via FOIA in the packet, in fact, to obtain the assignment. And the assignment was to pick a current events issue from a list of suggested topics, or with the teacher's permission, pick one yourself. Do research using the listed sources plus 2 others of your own, and write a letter for publication offering a position and persuasive arguments for the position and also counter arguments. Now, the list of suggested topics consisted of Wilmette junior high classes should all be air conditioned. Number 2, Wilmette should or should not ban the use of plastic bags by retailers. Number 3, Winnetka should not or should divert stormwater into Lake Michigan as part of its flood control project. I'll note here that should not has become the default attitude to have. Winnetka should not divert stormwater. The next one was voters should or should not approve the right to vote amendment to the Illinois Constitution. Then there were two more. The U.S. Senate should adopt a resolution against further genocide in Rwanda. The only senator listed to contact was Dick Durbin. Illinois, in fact, has two senators. Mark Kerr is the other one. And the last topic was the U.S. House should pass the Sudan Peace, Security, and Accountability Act of 2013. No should not option, but just should, I guess. Let me be direct. This appears to be no more than the teacher's laundry list of his or her personal crusades. Why, for example, is Winnetka's flood control project on this list? In fact, why does the teacher have to present a list in the first place in the midst of a current events class? Aren't the students capable of doing it themselves? Now, all the letters in the Beacon about the amendment were in favor of it, and they were argued very passionately, but not persuasively. After all, why does a constitutional amendment to prohibit discrimination have to exist since that discrimination is already illegal everywhere per the Voting Rights Act of 1965. The arguments against the amendment were two, that requiring a photo ID is an attempt to disenfranchise the poor, and number two, that voter fraud is not even a problem. Both points were stated without challenge or analysis, and were simply parroted back talking points from a place called voterfraudfacts.com, a far-left website cited by one of the students. Does this really pass for critical thinking in 7th grade here? It would not have when I was in 7th grade a long time ago. Anyway, whatever a teacher's politics or pet causes may be, they should not govern what or how our students are taught. But I am afraid it is occurring here, and it should not be. Our students deserve the right to be able to make up their own minds without teacher indoctrination. Going forward, I'm going to be keeping track of those current events assignments. And I hope this administration will take some steps to ensure that our students are not propagandized to in class. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Lichter?
Yeah, I just want to comment that, teachers often lead children in discussions in the classroom. And in these discussions, they generate lists of things that they will research together. So the kids are usually partners in these discussions, and they generate the list, and the teacher puts them on the list. And the teachers also focus heavily on getting multiple sources and different information for citing. It's not just one source. So I feel that teachers do give students opportunities for thorough review and discussion, and the children then can submit these as they choose to. I know that Mr. Flanagan received a bunch of letters.
He did indeed. Thank you. Are there other members of the audience who'd like to address the board at this time? All right, then, seeing none, I will inform the audience here and at home that we, the board that is, have decided to shift the agenda from our usual pattern, and we will begin with board committee reports for this meeting, starting with facility development. Ms. Alcantara.
There we go. We met on June 9th at the MEC here at 9:15 a.m. We discussed and received updates on our summer construction projects. As an overview, we have at Harper work for the foundation completed and backfilled, and rough plumbing completed in the crawl space. Still to be completed as of our meeting is masonry demolition in a new bathroom area, unit ventilator removal, installation of new rooftop units. At McKinsey School, we have new roof curbs that have been cut in and installed. And since our FDC meeting and in the coming weeks, we have work progressing on the main office and entry renovation. At Highcrest, we have new roof curbs and cut-ins installed. They will continue with unit ventilator removal and installation of new rooftop units. At the junior high, we have a lot of exciting things going on there. We have new concrete foundation work complete and backfilled, some demo work, electrical, HVAC work. In the coming weeks, we'll see a new concrete slab in the new entry area, structural shoring, demo work, exterior masonry work. It should look very nice. And at Ramona, we have installed new roof curbs, or will be, and we'll begin some main office renovation work. We also discussed at our meeting the AC units at the junior high, as well as the recent installation of variable frequency drives on all of our fans to address some sound issues, which seems to have been successful in alleviating noise concerns. Ms. Schaff provided an update on a Green Schools Energy Conference that she attended in April, and we then discussed various energy audit possibilities that we may have in order to increase energy efficiencies and capture associated savings. We also discussed a new garden pathway at Ramona School, some new materials being used in that installation. And also we discussed an approved installation of a new creative play space at Mackenzie, which was proposed and planned as a gift from the Mackenzie PTA. Finally, we discussed placement of new bike racks at the junior high. That's about it.
Thank you. Insurance Advisory, Ms. Donan.
Yes, our last insurance advisory meeting was on May 6th, and I gave a report at our last meeting. But I do want to inform everyone that our next insurance meeting will not be till October 21st at 4 p.m. We'll be looking then at the rollout, but so that will be coming up. But I do want to say congratulations to our Step It Up winners. I know Dr. Lechner will make a presentation, but I want to say kudos for a job well done for the winners of that program.
Thank you. Community Review Committee will be presenting its report this evening. It's our first significant piece on the agenda. And the CRC met on June 2nd, and then again on June 9th, there was I think first time in my recent memory, meeting between leadership of the CRC, both outgoing and incoming, and our Board of Education to focus on takeaways from the process of last year and recent years, and then perhaps more importantly, to look ahead to possible topics for the CRC to focus on in the next cycle this coming year. The CRC meets again on August 4th. Educational Foundation, there's no report this evening. WCSEA, Ms. Levine.
There has not been a meeting since our last meeting, since we met the day of the last meeting. We updated then. The next meeting is November 17th as we begin the 2014-15 school year.
Thank you. School Finance, Mr. Cronin.
School Finance, we had a very brief meeting on June 9. We discussed an iPad loss theft protection plan. Parents are not required to purchase the theft loss protection plan. District 39 will provide a plan that will replace an iPad due to accidental loss or theft. All claims will require a copy of a completed police report. The cost is $40 annual, non-refundable. Also a $75 deductible for the first claim. Also on June 9, we reviewed enrollment projections for District 39, and I believe that's on the agenda tonight. We'll get into more detail. We discussed on June 9 that many families had yet to complete the registration process. Grade levels are being monitored for possibly adding additional sections, Central Grade 2, Harper Kindergarten and Grade 1, Mackenzie Kindergarten, Ramona Kindergarten, and Grade 4. Finally, we discussed that enrollment at Ramona has been increasing. The administration discussed the need for a possible part-time assistant principal at Ramona due to increasing enrollment. And there is no July meeting, and I believe we're publishing tonight the schedule for the following year. Okay.
Thank you. This spring, the Board of Education established an ad hoc committee on communications. Work has begun on that effort, and I'll ask Ms. Levine for an update.
This ad hoc committee met actually this morning for the first time, and after some thinking about this past year, we've identified some needs for communication changes, and that's what that subcommittee was set up to address. You're seeing some of those changes happening as we speak now with the committee items moving further up in the agenda to ensure that while the community is actually watching the board meeting, which I think happens earlier versus later, that there's enough communication of what's going on in all the committee work, which is where really a lot of the kind of discussion, debate, and work gets done. We met with Dr. Lechner and the communications director, Ms. Holly Golden, and there's actually some other processes that are going to be put in place so we can kind of plan ahead for communication issues that need some communications and plan thoughtfully about how to ensure that the right information gets to the right audiences in a timely manner. And we will be meeting again on August 20th in anticipation of a full board review in the August meeting.
Thank you. This brings us to legislative update. Mr. Cronin?
Legislative update. On May 27 of this year, the Illinois Senate passed Senate Bill 16. It hasn't been voted on in the House yet, may not reach the House, I understand, till the end of the year or beginning of next year. And basically, Senate Bill 16, it's a new funding formula for suburb and downstate school districts. It's meant to be revenue neutral. Essentially what this is doing, it's taking away monies from the wealthier districts and redistributing that to the districts that are less affluent. There's a report that came out that projected a potential impact of approximately $2.1 million loss in the District 39 budget if the House were to pass this and the governor signed this into law. Again, the House probably won't look at this until after the fall elections, beginning of next year. Another Senate Bill 1, the pension reform bill. There's been 5 lawsuits filed. Those lawsuits are now being heard in downstate Illinois. There was a motion to, even though they're being heard by the same judge in the same courtroom, there was a motion to consolidate all 5 of the suits together. That motion failed by the state, so potentially there could be 5 different rulings on the same lawsuit. On May 14, a temporary restraining order was issued. The law was supposed to go into effect June 1st, so that is, with the restraining order, that has not happened. And so some of the unknowns with the restraining order and the lawsuit pending, if it's found to be constitutional, will it be prospective and date back to June 1st, 2014, or will it be prospective as of the date of the court's ruling? Will the 5 lawsuits pending go straight to the Illinois Supreme Court, or will they go through the appellate process? And again, the overall timeline, how long this is going to take, we don't know. Hopefully, the quicker the better, so school districts can plan their finances. And again, the issue with Senate Bill 1 and the law is whether it violates the pension protection clause in the Illinois Constitution. Now, if the law is found unconstitutional, what are some of the legislative options? Increase employee contributions. They can continue reducing funding for various state agencies and public institutions. And again, if we come back to this concept that they introduced earlier, which is still pending, the cost shift and shifting a lot of the pension costs to the various suburbs. And again, the status on the cost shift, that's been sort of buried. I haven't heard a lot of, I don't know if, Doctor, if you've heard anything on that, but not a lot of news on that lately. And again, I would suspect with the cost shift, nothing's going to happen until after the fall elections. And that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Cronin. The next agenda item is written communication. The board received written communication from Steve Vivian and Dr. Tia Raines concerning a letter of recommendation for an educator. This brings us now to administrative announcements from the superintendent and staff. Dr. Lechner.
Yes, and the audience will notice that we have a new video and recording system here. We're trying to improve our channel Cable 6 recordings. You'll also notice that the sound to all speakers is not the same, so we're going to ask everybody to keep the microphones as close to their mouth as they possibly can. With that, once again, graduation was spectacular. Dr. Palzette and his leadership team are to be commended for another meaningful and, I would say, very student-focused ceremony. We love having the graduation at New Trier High School, and already we have a tentative date for next year, Tuesday, June 9th, 2015. This spring, 160 staff members participated in our first wellness activity called Step It Up. Staff were assigned to a team and provided a pedometer to track their daily steps. This program ran from spring break to the end of our school year as we aim to increase awareness about personal activity levels and ways to increase fitness among our staff. Given that there are approximately 2,000 steps in a mile, Central teacher Carol Fitz was the overall individual winner with over 900,000 steps. And Team Pink earned the top title as the overall team winner with over 10 million steps as a group. Congratulations to everybody who participated. It was actually a very fun event. You'll note that we have a revised Board of Education calendar. Our board is finishing its work this evening, so we can announce the cancellation of our June 28th, 2014 board meeting, the same as we did July 28th, thank you very much, 2014 board meeting. We canceled this last year, and we're doing the same again this year. You'll also note that the September 22nd, 2014 board meeting was moved to September 29th, 2014. Now, because we have no meeting in July, we have a resolution this evening about July bill payments, and this resolution enables the district to meet its financial obligations between June 23rd, 2014 and August 25th, 2014 board meetings. All payments will be presented to the Board of Education at its August 25th meeting. We also have an item on the agenda regarding the Illinois prevailing wages. Annually, the Illinois Department of Labor Statistics establishes the prevailing wage rates for Illinois. Each public body is required to adopt, publicly post, and attach a copy of all prevailing wages to all construction contract specifications. This is an annual formality, and New Trier High School coordinates this process for all of us. As you already heard about through the School Finance Committee meeting, this year Ramona's enrollment is matched that of Mackenzie and Central, both of which have part-time assistant principals. As a result, Ramona needs the support of an assistant principal as well. The School Finance Committee approved this part-time position and will begin posting that tomorrow. Summer enrichment, I need to commend Dr. Thrasher and her summer enrichment team. Because of the extended school year we had this year related to the vortex, the team had no time to prepare for the first day of summer school, as the school year ended on Friday and summer school began on Monday, and the program began seamlessly. Thank you. And finally, we have a FOIA received from Herbert Sirach regarding the education of the Illinois' right to vote, voter ID requirements, and voter suppression. We also had 2 FOIA requests from Kathy Routliff, Pioneer Press, regarding iPad communications and all drafts of the 2012-13 CRC report called Review of Technology and Learning Environments. And that is all.
Thank you. We'll turn now, if there are no questions or comments from board members on that portion, to the Community Review Committee report. Dr. Lechner.
Yes, I'm very excited to announce the next item. Each spring, the CRC presents its annual report to our Board of Education. This report continues to be a driving force in our long-term planning. Tonight's final product comes after months and months of research, review, discussion, and writing. The district will use this report to set our goals in 2014-15, and then next August will be the annual response to the CRC report, where I signal how the district plans to implement the recommendations from the CRC. Then in next September and October, the district and superintendent goals are established and approved by the Board of Education. I'd like to invite the CRC president, Lisa Fabes, to the podium as I thank the entire CRC for yet another report.
You know that technology. As Dr. Lechner said, my name is Lisa Schneider Fabes, and I am proud to represent the men and women of the CRC this year. It was truly a collective process. I'm going to go over what I'm going to go over tonight, which is the reason why we chose technology again, the process we went through, what we learned, what are our recommendations, and then take your questions. So why did we choose technology again? It was very an unorthodox move by the CRC. Usually the CRC picks a new topic each year. Well, last year, the 2012-13 report had 17 recommendations. These were big, bold recommendations dealing with technology, and many of those recommendations required additional study or additional information needed for implementation. In addition, I talked to, when I became CRC president, the past presidents of the CRC, many of them, who said that oftentimes the CRC reports are so dense and a burden, if you will, on the district in terms of there's one report, then another, then another. Maybe we should take a breath and each year alternate one topic that's big, the next topic work on operational issues, and then the third year take a new topic. And so we thought that sounded right. And we looked at 3 areas that we thought really could use a deeper dive and that were of interest. The first was the one-to-one iPad pilot. The second was what we thought was the centers of excellence, meaning a place where we could, that would gather kind of the best technologies and then infuse it into the district. And finally, technology-enabled learning spaces. So what did we do this year? We were busy. By September, we had both chosen a topic and broken up into subcommittees, subgroups. We started with kind of open minds. We had the general idea of what we were going to look at based on last year's report. And then we educated ourselves through multiple ways. The first is online and kind of book research. The second was a survey of teachers and administrators about their technology use. And then we were fortunate this year to start monthly speakers, so that at each CRC meeting, we had national and even global experts in the field of technology. And when we talk about technology, it's not just iPad, right? It's the idea of learning commons and learning space. What do the buildings look like? What are kids sitting on? And we learned a lot. We learned about what people all over the world and all over the country were doing, things that went well and things that didn't go so well. And finally, through that process, we collectively developed and shared and refined both what the charge of the group was, each group, and our recommendations. And I do want to say it was truly a process where everyone was engaged, everyone had a role, every report version was a Google Doc, and people really had both the time and the freedom to question and to change and edit what we were thinking and doing. There were 3 subcommittees at the end. The first and by the way, I want to thank those leaders tremendously. The first leader is Julie Adrianopoli, who is also your new CRC president for the upcoming year. She is going to talk about the topic of leadership, followed by Amanda, who's going to talk about the Learning Commons, and finally, Tracy Kearney was in charge of the final group, and she's unable to be here tonight, so I will present her piece and do a close. Julie?
Thank you. Good evening. All right, so I am going to review the first 5 topics that fall under the first section within the report titled Leadership. So recommendation 1, Peter Drucker, who is a management and marketing guru and one of my favorite authors on leadership, once said, "Unless commitment is made, there are only promises and hopes, but no plans." Our first recommendation is about District 39 making a serious commitment to integrating technology into the classroom and enhancing information literacy. We are recommending that the district work with an experienced consultant to develop a 3 to 5 year technology plan that articulates a vision and outlines strategies for utilizing technology, not just as a tool, but as a piece of equipment, but as a 21st century instructional strategy. In the survey we distributed to teachers and administrators, One teacher said, we need a completely connected District 39. It's not just about purchasing iPads for every student. It's about a strategic and well thought out technology plan that benefits our students. Our second recommendation is around assessing the technology leadership of the district. District 39 has a strong technology team in place, but depending on the strategies developed through the planning process, the staffing needs will have to be determined. It is critical that we all are heading in the same direction and working together. The teachers in particular are interested in more leadership around instructional design and lesson planning. The CRC committee also believes there's an opportunity to develop some digital learning partnerships and to improve communication with parents, which could be accomplished with appropriate staffing. We believe highly qualified technology staff that is supported and empowered is critical to moving the district forward together, students, teachers, administrators, and parents. Our third recommendation is around standards and related curriculum. The International Society for Technology Education has already developed standards for learning, teaching, and leading in the digital age. These standards are widely recognized and adopted worldwide, including by the Illinois State Board of Education. Teachers want to know what is expected of them, and they want to know what students should be able to know and do in technology at every grade level. The standards exist. We need to formalize the way that we are using the standards in the district and develop appropriate curriculum to support digital learning at every grade. I might also add that the ISTE website has vast resources, and I would encourage anybody who's interested in this topic to be inspired by what is possible when it comes to digital learning. The fourth recommendation is about ongoing coordinated district-wide professional development. I think everyone agrees that we have amazing teachers in this district, amazing. We need to arm our teachers with best practices when it comes to using technology in the classroom. Teachers are expected to be able to know and do so much, and technology is changing so quickly. It is important that we give the teachers the support that they need to be effective on an ongoing basis. Based on feedback from the teacher survey that we already did, as I mentioned before, the majority of teachers are excited about using technology and acknowledge that they are getting PD. But there's a call for more coaching and assistance when it comes to instructional strategy, curriculum design, and lesson planning. There are so many teacher resources out there, and it's difficult for teachers to know what is good and what fits with the curriculum that is already being implemented. It's also hard for teachers to find the time to learn new tools. They need additional training and support and more opportunities to learn from one another and from experts. Recommendation 5, our final recommendation is about supporting and encouraging innovation in the district. Some of the teachers in District 39 are utilizing technology in really interesting and innovative ways. We need to celebrate the successes of those teachers who are developing innovative teaching practices, and we need to ensure that all teachers understand the best practices that are happening in the district already, so that they can be inspired and learn from one another. A quick example. So my son just finished first grade, and through one of his classes, he was instructed to bring in a digital camera. And they took a 1-minute video of what was happening on the playground. Technology, or a digital camera was being used as technology. He then had to write, based on the video that he had produced of the 1-minute video on the playground. He then had to write who were the characters, what was the setting, what was the plot, what was the sequence of events. He loved it, and I loved it. It was a great way to use media to get kids writing and learning about the elements of a story. Technology can be very powerful and effective if teachers are empowered and know its potential. Next slide, please. Oh. Got it. All right. See, I need to learn how to use the technology. All right. So I think the important thing to know and remember is that this is not really about technology as a piece of equipment. It's about how we use technology. To maximize its potential and to ensure students benefit the most, teachers need to be trained and students need to be taught how to use it responsibly. So just to kind of demonstrate some shifts as we were going through our research and compiling it, Mooresville School District, which is in North Carolina, this provided a great example. We actually had someone from their district Skype in to speak at one of our CRC meetings. And he talked about their old vision was that technology is a tool to help educate students. That's kind of how, in the past, they described technology use in their district. And their new vision was really about employing technology in ways that improve teaching and learning through increased student engagement while teaching the North Carolina Standards course of study focusing on reading and math. So it's really, how do you incorporate technology as a tool to improve instruction in the core curricular area. So our suggested planning process, and this was really based on lots of conversations that we had with people around the country who were doing this well, who were recognized for the progress that they have made in implementing technology and digital learning practices. So first and foremost is that you need to hire an expert in the planning process, somebody who can come in and really help the district think big and think about what is possible. Again, not thinking about technology or a technology vision being an iPad for every student, but thinking about all of the possibilities and how we might use technology to improve outcomes for students. There certainly needs to be an evaluation of what's currently happening in the district. So through our survey and through the focus groups that we had with teachers, there is really amazing things happening. And I think we have to build off of what is already working and what is already successful in our own district. And there are a lot of models and best practices. So I think going through a process of gathering more information and compiling that in a way that helps us think about the possibilities would be useful. I can't stress enough the importance of engaging the community and all stakeholders in this process. So while we might think that parents understand and receive frequent emails and communications about changes or the direction that we're going when it comes to technology, I think engaging them in this process in a meaningful way will go a long way with building the support that is needed. And finally, it goes without saying that realistic strategies need to be developed that are aligned with the strategic plan of the district, and it needs to be budgeted, right? So the resources need to be there to support the implementation of whatever this becomes.
I'm going to talk about the next section of our report, which is about the structure and the spaces. And we had 3 recommendations specific to our area. And the first one in our section is each District 39 school should continue the planning for a learning commons with the assistance of a planning professional that specializes in the development of a 21st century learning spaces with the assistance of the Learning Commons website developed by District 39 staff. It's a lot of language there, but basically what we're saying is that capitalizing on what Julie said is that every school in the district needs a learning commons. It needs to be utilize everything in the previous recommendations and continue from there. The next recommendation is to utilize what Principal Rebecca Littman did, and she created one, but to expand on the one that's there and use it as a model so that we're not starting from scratch, that they're all created universally. And finally, the last one is to explore the staffing models and usage patterns. If you're going to create the space, you want to use it right, and you don't want to burn out the teachers that are in there. You want to make sure there's enough staff, there's enough materials, it's used effectively. Why invest the money if we're not going to have the people and the professional development and the resources to use it? And again, schools must develop new relevant learning models in response to students who expect to learn in new ways using the technology they use ubiquitously outside of school. The Learning Commons is a real-world, whole-school approach to creating such a new collaborative learning model for students and teachers. And I provided some explanation of what's there, and this is also based on what Central School has done And there are several examples listed in the report of how they have capitalized on that. They've used their learning commons in various ways. The basics of it is that it's student-centered, it's flexible, it's connectivity through communication, it's promoting higher order thinking, it's showcasing learning, and it's promoting further engagement. We want to teach our students in a 21st century style since that's the way they're going to be learning. There are many professional centers downtown and around the country that are utilizing these spaces because we are all learning and engaging in different ways. And the spaces can be used as a studio space, a maker space. They can present, they're cozy, they can collaborate. And some examples, I'll read a couple. For National Poetry Month, this was all done in Central School. There was a poetry pop-up. There were 3 areas to interact with poetry. They could browse, create, and perform. They were able to use the books and listen to student-created poetry using QR codes, create poet tweets and haikus, and they were posted on the Twitter account, and they could perform on the green screen using puppets. So a unique way of learning that was the teachers created for that space. And that's it.
So it makes me laugh because I was just thinking if I could ask the kids in the Central School Learning Commons if they would learn how to create an app so that kids would not whine and eat their dinner. So the last part of the report is talking about both policies and procedures and communication. Again, Tracy Kearney was the chair of that subcommittee, and she could not be here tonight and sends her regrets. But basically, what Tracy's committee did was look at various acceptable use policies around the country and recommend various changes, which you can find in the report. The committee also looked at kind of what other districts do for communication plans. And I think this one recommendation is one that can get rolled into one that Julie talked about, which is the planning. That part of any good technology plan would also include a section on kind of communication in terms of how we're going to communicate both the vision and the direction in which we're going. In the report, her team put together kind of a model template of a communications plan, kind of what that could look like. So that summarizes our recommendations. We tried to be succinct. And in closing, I just wanted, Dr. Lechner, are you laughing? Were we not?
You succeeded.
Thank you. So I thought I'd even be more succinct and close with 4 words, but expound on them. The first is thankful. I'm personally thankful for the opportunity to have been on the CRC last year and the president this year. It's been an amazing time of growth and learning. I'm thankful for my colleagues who worked very hard, both the staff, the administration, and the parents. It was truly a collaborative effort. Everyone pulled their weight, and people worked really hard. So I just want to take a minute and thank everybody. Thank you. I know that many of them wanted to be here tonight and would have been had the meeting been last month. So I just want to acknowledge that. Hopeful. So I am really hopeful. I'm hopeful because in my career, I've been able to go around to schools around the country, and I know that when they go through these digital conversions, when they do the plan, when they invest in the professional development, exciting things happen. You go into a building and there's noise, constructive noise, there's kids engaged, there's people, the adults want to learn and change, the kids want to learn and change, they take responsibility, the kids do, for their own learning, and the teachers become more of a facilitator of the learning. So I'm hopeful that that is what can happen in District 39. And I'm also hopeful that you, the board, and Dr. Lechner will say yes to our report and recommendations. And I'm excited for all the reasons I just said that I'm hopeful. It's an exciting time in our country. It's an exciting time in education because things are changing so fast. And finally, I and the CRC, the remaining members, and I can't speak for the ones coming off, but I'd like to, we're committed to help. That should the district move forward with our recommendations, we would like to be part of the community that helps with the planning process and, if possible, even implementation. So I thank you for your time and your attention, and I'd like to open it up for questions, and some of the CRC members are here also to help answer your questions.
Thank you, Lisa, and thanks to your colleagues. Why don't I start off to the right? Questions, comments? Mark Steen?
Sure. Obviously, you mentioned right at the end that things change very rapidly, obviously, both in education and in particular in technology. Did you do any work on future-proofing the design, and what are your thoughts on that topic?
So in terms of future-proofing the design, I think you can only plan for what you know, but what we do know is it will constantly change, right? Like Google Glass is already coming up. Things are always happening, but if we create a plan that enables kind of nimble responses, we'll be okay. I mean, every year things change. And when I think about just even watching what we've done so far, one-to-one starting, Learning Commons is starting. You know, I think if we plan well, we'll be okay.
Yep. And then I think this may be somewhat outside the, well, I know you've done a lot of work personally with this around the country. And you talked about budgeting for success. What kind of budget numbers do you think people talk about or see? What's an effective amount of money to spend on this kind of thing?
So I'm going to say that I don't know because I don't know what the district will want to do. But one of the interesting things when you talk about budgets is some of the speakers that we had talked about kind of the iPads are actually an operational issue, right? You move the cost into the ops line because it's the same thing as a textbook, if you will. It's a tool. They also talk about the things that you no longer have to pay for. So I'm not going to sit here and say initially it's going to be budget neutral, but we had many superintendents, many chief technology officers talk about that in the end of the day, it is affordable. Because you're no longer buying textbooks. You're no longer, you know, I don't have the specifics, Mark, at my fingertips, but what I can tell you is we can bring people in who would share their budgets and how they've done it.
Yeah, no, it's a little beyond the scope, but I thought maybe you would have some interesting insight into that as well. This is great. I really appreciate the report, and I'm excited to move into it, and then we'll hear in August more about what we like to implement. So thank you very much. Thank you to all the CRC members.
I just want to thank you for a great report. I'm really, I was looking at the structure space portion, and I'm glad you chose the Learning Commons this year as something to talk about. I know there were a lot of different kinds of spaces in last year's report, but I think this one fits our district, you know, and the goals of our district right now most completely of all the different kinds of spaces that are very high specialized, I guess, highly specialized. So I just had a question. We're working on Learning Commons now. Central seems to be a lot further ahead than the rest of the schools. What kind of communication is going on between the different schools to try to bring everybody up to the same level at this point in our district?
Who's best? I mean, that seems like a district operational issue.
It could be a district question. It could be maybe from your research you've found.
I'm not, maybe you can, are you asking me what Central is doing to disseminate the information, or are you asking?
Well, I know what kind of communication is going on, so, you know, between Central and the other schools, or all four of the schools, so that all of them can learn about it, and, yeah.
I'm happy to try to address that question.
Great.
We meet as principals regularly, and I have to say that we're all very excited about the Learning Commons initiative. And while Central is being highlighted in this report, I do want to let you know that all the schools are talking and planning and have their ideas. I know that Harper, just for example, I want to speak on their behalf, but they did just recently redesign their library space, and I know that Dr. Kick is working very closely with everybody to ensure that a lot of the Learning Commons initiatives are being implemented within that new space. Central is being highlighted because of a couple of reasons. And then I can tell you a little bit about how we're communicating, because I want to get to that answer. We had a classroom that was empty because it used to be part of the technology lab, and we actually built a wall down the middle of our lab years ago when we needed the, because we had higher enrollment. So because we had that extra space, we decided to repurpose it, and we did research for the last 2 years. I created a committee of parents, administrators, and staff to look at how exactly what CRC was doing so that we could incorporate and use the best space so that we could then talk about phase 1 and how we're going to utilize the space. I have to thank the Educational Foundation, the PTA, who really helped collaborate on the space and allow us some resources to get started. We would like to eventually look at something a little bit larger because we learned that the space is small. And at Central School, for those of you who know the structure of the building, we have our library over here and our tech lab over here, and other spaces such as some of the other elementary schools like Mackenzie have one large space. So that might be an example of how they already have the structure, and we would like to kind of be more like that. So to answer your question about communication, yes, we all have different spaces in our building, so we're all talking and implementing these ideas, but we're at different places. So Mackenzie might already have the structure in place, and so they're meeting with their committee about how to use their current space and structure. Central might be looking like, okay, this is what we learned from this year. We realize we need to have our library, our tech, our makerspace all together to utilize resources, people, and physical resources in one space. So we are constantly talking and communicating what's working at Central. Harper, what did you do? Mackenzie, how is your space? You have a lab connected to your library. How are you best using that? So we're constantly talking and trying different things. I will say that we are communicating amongst each other, and then we're communicating as an ad council over the summer. And then we all currently have committees in our buildings to look at our current space to decide what needs to be done that might be very unique to our building, and then we're going to communicate that to the public. At Central, we have been communicating all along through a Twitter account that we put together on our website, and parents can either join Twitter or they can actually look on our front page and they can see our Twitter feeds. And we decided Twitter because you can tell a story from start to finish, and we take pictures of all the activities as we go along and how the space is being built, even from this is some new furniture we're trying to this is the poetry station to this is something the kids are doing, so you can actually get a visual of what's happening in the space and how it's being utilized to tell our story. We are also communicating, through PTA meetings. We had an open house where we had student ambassadors walk the parents around the space because we feel like we don't just want to disseminate communication, but we want it to be understood and have the parents feel like they're there.
Great.
I'm sorry, that was a long answer.
No, but it was a really thorough answer.
Okay.
Thank you. It was good. Thank you. That
Sure.
helps a lot. My congratulations, too, to the CRC. Thank you for a job well done this year.
Other comments, Mr. Dronin?
I have a few questions and comments. A follow-up, first of all, again, great job to you and your committee. Enjoyed reading the report. And I remember when I used to be on the committee, and it brings back good memories. A lot of hard work goes into that, so thank you again. I want to follow up a question that Mark had, and I want to distinguish between hard costs and soft costs. Your report, the district, our technology budget is pretty significant, and we spend a lot on hardware, smart boards, iPads, computers. I think your report is more addressed that once we have this hardware, what's the best way to integrate that with as far as professional development, curriculum. Would I be correct on that?
Yeah, because part of the challenge is that it can just be a paperweight, right? If you don't know how to use it. And it's going to change. So you really need to know what you're going to do. And, to your point, I was just thinking about the cost. One of the things is you don't need computer labs anymore. What you're going to need is constantly going to change.
Okay. And did you get a feel from your interviews with teachers and your surveys that the technology we have, let's say in terms of smart boards, let's pick that as an example, that they weren't as trained as well as they could be on that type of technology? Or there were comments in the report that teachers felt there could be more professional development. So I'm trying to get a feel for, with the technology that we have in the district, how could the board, how could the administration be doing a better job with the existing technology? So before we purchase new stuff, and with what we have, how do we improve that?
Yeah.
And give us examples of that.
Yeah, I think it's a good question. And I think teachers acknowledged that they were getting professional development and there was an awareness about the tools, and there were plenty of resources out there. It was a matter of getting coaching and assistance around instructional design, around lesson planning, around curriculum development. So it wasn't how to use the tool, but how to use the tool as part of what they're teaching. What are kind of the innovative ideas and ways in which other teachers, they talked a lot about wanting to learn from each other. What are the different ways that we could, based on what we're already doing, that we could utilize technology to improve what we're already offering or what we're already doing in the classroom. So it was really around instructional strategy and lesson planning.
Thank you. That's helpful. I read all the footnotes to your report, and I also referenced some of the outside reading materials, and specifically I read the two of the reports. One was from Vancouver, and one was from Farmington. And one of the things I noticed when I read those reports is that they're both 3-year reports, and a lot of the stuff that they talk about we're already doing in the district. But we haven't articulated on paper what a technology vision statement is. We haven't articulated, what we expect of our teachers. We haven't articulated, assessment processes. So I just want, the public should know that we've rolled out technology for years in this district. I think we do a good job. But maybe the time has come. We really have to formally commit to writing. What do we expect from our students? What do we expect from our teachers? Are the teachers using the technology that we give them? And then what do we expect from our administrators in making sure that when we roll out new technologies, that our teachers actually implement it? But again, there are great outside reading sources. And again, I feel our district is doing a lot of these things, but it would be nice to see a report where we put it all together and just let the public know what are we doing, and communicate that better. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Alcantara.
Thank you very much for the report. It was very helpful and chock full of information. I do appreciate and wanted to recognize that it can be overwhelming to have kind of an inundation of a lot of different recommendations and reports on completely different subjects, which is, it's both inspiring and helpful, but also can be an overload in terms of information. So I think that I personally appreciate the deeper dive and the focus on specific recommendations as a springboard from last year's report, which was very expansive. And I felt that you really honed in on some particular areas. And I feel like, in particular, in the leadership section of your report, looking at the different schools we have, the different personalities that our schools have, the different teachers within those schools, I do have a concern about not all of the teachers in the schools teaching in the same way, but having access to the same resources and the same ideas that are out there. And I know that we are doing a lot of that. So I look forward to having more information and perhaps some presentations on the way in which our teachers already have access to lesson plans and those kinds of examples, whether it be with smart boards or in the future iPads, and how we can improve those. I also think, regarding Mr. Dronen's comments, that our communication on these issues will, I think, be very helpful, because I do think that we are doing a lot of, making a lot of steps that aren't necessarily reflected in writing somewhere where the public can see those. So I think that that will be something that we'll be working on closely as well. So thank you very much.
let me just add on to something that you said, which is what we learned from the survey is that people do things very differently, and they don't have the same ideas about kind of what should be done and how technology should be used. And one of the speakers that we had, Hal Davidson, talked about the value of a vision and a plan, is that you're saying, everybody hop on the train. We're going to LA. Now you can stop in Ohio for a rest. You can slowly make it over the mountains, but we are all going to LA. And it's that clarity of vision and purpose. And it's that every teacher, every principal can articulate kind of where it is we're going. And I think that that's, and then they can communicate that to the community and the parents. And that's very powerful. And I don't think we're there yet because we don't have that stated vision. Like we're all saying the same thing, but I do want to say that I believe it's really powerful if we do that.
Thank you, Mr. Dronin.
I do have a follow-up question for Dr. Lechner. If we were to add a technology curriculum coordinator, could that be done in a from our technology budget? Could that be done in a cost-neutral fashion? And if you don't have answers right now, next board meeting is fine.
Yeah, actually I do. Everything I do is as much as possible to be cost neutral. So we reorganize or realign our existing resources to meet those needs if we possibly can. So we're going to take a look at, first we have to have a strategic vision for technology, and I'm not letting my report out of the bag yet, but I've already committed to doing that, doing that process. And then once we have it outlined, then we look and see how we're going to support that.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Levine.
Yes, thank you. Also, I'll add my thanks. And my question, I guess, relates to some of the comments that have come up around staffing and professional development. But I'm curious if in your research, you got any perspective on teachers, I guess, coming out of education programs and where kind of the new crop of talent and teachers is coming from, and what they're already coming in with, like how digitally native they are as they start out their careers, and to some extent what maybe their expectations are of what a district will already have in place because they're coming in with ideas on how to use technology to advance their instruction. So I'm just curious if there was any perspective on what's being taught to new teachers as they're coming into their educational careers.
So I think that some of the higher ed kind of pipeline areas aren't as savvy as maybe we need them to be yet, but there are those who are. And what we've learned from the superintendents and the administrators that we talk to is the districts that have these plans that are forward thinking, even if they're in a small town in a less desirable part of the country, they have people banging down the doors to work there. So it's more about attracting talent and retention because of the plan and the vision than it is about what skills people are coming with. And I think maybe Dr. Lechner and the principals might speak better to what teachers are coming
Yeah, I just
with.
I can add to that because we interview teachers every year, and I can tell you that in the past 3 years, the level of knowledge and experience that teachers are coming out of college is much greater. They're coming to us already using smart boards. And when I ask them about that experience, they get it mostly through student teaching. Another school district is using these tools and showing them how to use it.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? One of the good things about going last is that my questions are always asked and answered, so I'll just conclude with my thanks for this outstanding report, and I look forward to continuing the discussion in August. So, thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
This brings us now to the next item on our agenda, which is revised math curriculum update. Dr. Lechner.
Yes, this report is the third in a series of math curriculum updates as we are ready to select curriculum materials for grades 6 through 8. As a reminder, in District 39, materials supplement our curriculum. Our curriculum is written by teachers, and Melanie Horowitz has this report.
Thank you, Dr. Lechner. Our May board report and presentation provided detailed information about the district curriculum review process for revising our math curriculum. We concluded in May with a promise to return in June with a decision about materials for grades 6, 7, and 8. Tonight's presentation, which summarizes the report in your packets, will describe the Math Committee's continued efforts toward that resolution. Joining me tonight are our curriculum coordinators, Katie Lee and Kathy Fleming, and our current content area assistant and 7th grade math teacher, Katie Maley. Thank you, ladies. The two math programs under consideration by the Math Committee were Connected Math Project 3, CMP3, and Big Ideas. We decided that it was best to arrange for the subcommittee to meet again with the publishing representatives from these two top contending companies for a deeper dive into the nuances of each set of materials. The committee identified the following common strengths of these two programs. First, both of these have excellent assessment options that teachers can easily adapt for specific purposes such as pretests, formative assessments, or summative assessments from existing banks of test items. In addition, both of these programs have technology platforms available that are compatible with our existing devices for both students and teachers. Further, consistent with our District 39 philosophy, differentiated instruction suggestions are also included for students working above level and for our students who require modifications or accommodations. And finally, consistent with our shift to the 8 mathematical practices as key dispositions for mathematical learning, both CMP3 and Big Ideas design lessons and investigations around these practices to develop conceptual, procedural, and application understandings.
So taking a closer look at these two programs, we're going to take a look at the Connected Mathematics Project, 3rd edition, and our teachers were able to identify these strengths. One was that CMP3 would provide a nice bridge between the K-5 math programs that we were adopting to support our curriculum, and that with the approach being very similar, that students would make a smooth transition from Math in Focus to CMP3. We knew that both programs had a strong sense of investigation, which allows students to build on previously learned concepts and skills. Additionally, CMP3 gave us a really close alignment to the sequence that we had designed as we revised the curriculum for mathematics. The sequence of skills and concepts that we intended for our 6th graders, which were built on the sequences that preceded that year. The sequence includes the priority and supporting goals, and CMP3 aligns well with our curriculum sequence. But no materials are ideal. And so our publisher trainers from the company are prepared to work with us to customize these materials to best meet our students' needs. Like our science and social studies curriculum revisions, an inquiry approach is used to be an invitation to engagement for each student. This inquiry approach leads students to apply skills and concept understandings, and in that way, they're able to attack, grapple with, enjoy the challenging and authentic real-world problems. Katie's going to give you a little bit of insight into the Big Ideas program.
Good evening. The authors of Big Ideas, Ron Larson and Laurie Boswell, have focused their work primarily in grades 6 through 8, and they were recognized for that work. The 2014 editions have been revised to align with the new standards, and although their goal to help students understand the interconnectedness of mathematics concepts has not changed, they have enhanced their materials to include student inquiry and updated notes to the teacher to reflect the most current research. And as you know, the curriculum, District 39 curriculum, was developed prior to looking into our resources, and we're pleased to tell you that what we have aligned for district grade 7 and 8 are very much closely aligned with the Big Ideas sequences. So it helped that we matched the experts. Upon review of Big Ideas, we discovered that the resources also support our efforts in providing a smooth transition from District 39 to New Trier High School. Its balanced instructional approach allows the students to build conceptual understanding through inquiry so that they can apply their knowledge to novel problems and contexts. In addition, in grades 7 and 8, some, not all, of the standards we have set for the students fall in the area of procedural knowledge. Therefore, another strength of the resources is that it provides a bank of practice problems, as well as guides teachers into multiple pathways of receiving the same result. The Big Ideas resources also provide necessary tools for grade 7 and 8 students and parents. The student texts, video tutorials, and practice test items will assist students to self-advocate for their learning, which is one of the characteristics of the successful learners. As a student reflects about math class that day or happens to be absent, they can assess their own needs, access these materials, and learn in a different modality.
In May, we explained the complex and challenging work of our curriculum committees. While some districts simply select programs and materials from the marketplace as each of their curricular areas come up for review, our board knows that here in District 39, our teachers actually revise and develop curricula for the students in Wilmette through a comprehensive process that ensures the resulting program of study is well-researched, engaging, and appropriate for our student population. Our consultant, Jenny Winters, repeatedly cautioned us that it would be unlikely that a single resource would meet the needs of our district because we create our own curriculum. In truth, our teachers had been experiencing the need to use multiple resources all year as they piloted a variety of high-quality, online, budget-neutral materials while we investigated new programs for the district. So as we considered the benefits of both CMP3 and Big Ideas, we began to see the benefits of what we are coining our hybrid proposal for grades 6, 7, and 8. First, this proposal will provide access to teacher resources in both of these programs at all 3 grade levels and for our teachers who work with accelerated math programming. In addition, our teachers will continue to use the budget-neutral materials such as the model math curriculum units or illustrative math to supplement their instruction as they've been doing all year. They may also continue to use resources through the National Council of Teachers of Mathematics, which we get through the district in individual membership fees. These are always timely and very engaging for their students. And finally, our hybrid accounts for the student materials that our committee saw as most appropriate for their students' needs. So our 6th grade students will have for our 6th grade students, CMP3 provides that scaffolding from Math in Focus and the great match to our 6th grade curriculum design. For students in 7th and 8th grade, the Big Ideas is the better choice to support our students for the challenges of New Trier math. At this point, I'd like Katie Maley to give you some very specific examples for her students.
Thank you. Throughout our time of transitioning to the revised math curriculum, teachers at WJHS have been making changes to enhance the experiences of our students. Some of these changes have included higher expectations in terms of student understanding, encouraging students to communicate about math, and helping students to build their own knowledge of the content. The first of these I'd like to elaborate on is higher expectations. With our higher expectations of student understanding, students are being asked to analyze content across multiple mathematical models. When students may have once been given the task of just solving an equation or interpreting information from a table, now they're being asked to connect these 2 modes and identify important information and how they're related to each other. Students are also being encouraged to look beyond the traditional rules of mathematics and to think about why these properties are actually true. The main example that came to my mind was when we talk about adding fractions. Most 7th grade students remember that you have to have a common denominator in order to add fractions, but very few can tell me why. And so as part of that conversation, when they have to know why, it helps them understand why they are learning the particular procedures that they are. The next important thing that I wanted to point out was communicating about mathematics. On a daily basis, our students are being asked to talk math. Whether they are presenting a problem to the class, engaged in a whole class discussion, or generating ideas in a small group, our students are learning what it means to be critical learners of mathematics. At the end of the year, one of my students shared that she liked to work in groups a lot because it helped her make sure that she understood what they were learning. When she would talk it through with her table, she felt like it would help them discuss their ideas and make sure they were all on the right track before they would continue. On a daily basis, students are constructing their own ideas of a concept, discussing them with their peers, and reasoning through the logic of each other. By listening to the ideas of others, students have the opportunity to evaluate their own understanding of the concepts we're learning. The last topic was students that are being encouraged to build their knowledge of a concept. There are countless patterns in math, and through discovering these patterns, students have the ability to construct their knowledge of a particular topic. An example of this was when we were discussing the side lengths of a triangle. Rather than simply being told that the sum of two sides of a triangle must be larger than the third side, students are encouraged to use an applet that helps them manipulate the side lengths of a triangle so they can discover the patterns for themselves. As students are looking through the patterns, they're able to build their understanding with repeated trials and are able to make more meaningful connections to the content they are learning rather than just simply remembering a rule. We're all very excited about the changes we've seen so far, and we look forward to continuing them in the fall.
This report concludes the material selection for the Math Curriculum Committee work. However, the committee has already begun a variety of summer projects, which include completing some final work on curriculum maps, developing common assessments, professionally developing staff, which will be an ongoing process, and making any changes to report cards that the committee sees as necessary. Additionally, we will be working with the two publishers to make any necessary adjustments about the pacing of units of study to align with the length of our 40-minute schedules in District 39. Math programs are produced for math periods that are longer than 40 minutes in length. And as you saw in your board reports, part of our work was to do a comparison of the length of math classes around the township. District 39's time allotment for math falls at the low end of instructional time within the township. We appreciate that any changes to scheduling has a domino effect, and that changes of this nature represent a change in working conditions that require agreement between the Teachers Association and the board. With the best interests of their students in mind and a very solid understanding of best instructional practices related to math instruction, the Math Curriculum Committee respectfully requests consideration for this recommendation with the next contract so that students receive the maximum benefit from the revised Wilmette School District 39 K-8 math curriculum scope and sequence, the revised K-8 math curriculum maps, and these new K-8 materials. And at this time, the four of us are happy to take your questions and comments.
Thank you. I'll lead off. I was interested to see the reference to Winnetka and Sunset Ridge piloting the CMP3. I assume that's through 8th grade?
Yes.
And I'd like you just to describe what your understanding of the term pilot is. Are they actually doing that in selected classes, sort of to test it, or is it just evaluation by a committee, or how deep does that pilot go in those districts?
Well, Sunset Ridge is a very tiny, tiny district. So in Sunset Ridge, they are actually piloting it in their district, in their classrooms. In Winnetka, I believe they're doing it teacher volunteers at this point. So it's a more limited pilot at this point in Winnetka.
But a pilot is not an adoption.
It is not an adoption, no.
Is piloting commonplace? I don't recall if we've done this in math.
Piloting is commonplace. Sometimes they'll do a unit for a couple of weeks and then try another series. Teachers typically fall in love with what they're piloting because that's what they know. So it's it has limited value from our standpoint. It's a dicey road to travel, so we approach it with caution.
So it can range from sampling
Sampling.
to a real trial.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Other comments, Ms. Donnan?
All right. I just have a question about the length of time of our math class. In an ideal world, if we didn't have to consider the domino effect or other workplace requirements, what would you see as an ideal math class?
We'd like to, I can ask the committee, the ladies' opinions as well. We'd like to see probably at least an hour, I would think. Yeah, yeah.
You would like an hour every day, 5 days a week?
Yes,
Okay, so an additional 20 minutes.
correct.
Okay, we'll work on that.
Other comments or questions?
Oh.
Mr. Dronin?
A follow-up to Ms. Donnan's question. My understanding is the other sender schools, their kids are in school the same amount of days, roughly the same amount of minutes, right? Or am I incorrect on that?
I don't know about their total school day.
Okay. My follow-up to that would be, in order for them to have 60 minutes in math and us 40, then they're giving up possibly in other areas.
Possibly, or as you can see, some of them have a block of time that they're sort of juggling around between science and math in one particular case. That was in, for just a second, that was in Winnetka. And I don't think that would be something that we would recommend here. We'd have very unhappy science teachers in our district if we went that route. So I think there's different ways to look at that, but I will also tell you that we have other teachers who would be asking for additional time also. So when I talk about a domino effect, I think that we would have to look at schedules across the board if we're looking at schedules.
Dr. Lecter, I'd like to see a little bit more information on that. And I guess my concern would be if we roll out a new program that's going to be efficiently run with 60-minute classroom sessions. My first question would be, is there a way within our existing minutes without going to collective bargaining, is there a way that we can get close to that 60 minutes? And I have a two-part question. And if not, or we can't get close to that, I think the board, we have to consider this long and hard before you roll out a program that goes to 60 minutes, and then we don't have flexibility in our schedule, and then, okay, now collective bargaining, we need an extra 20 minutes from the union. We have to think that carefully, okay?
And actually, we have a solution. We have a bridging solution for the time. We'll be working with the consultants, is that correct?
We are. The consultants are going to be working with us in the interim to adjust their programs to meet our needs, their pacing of their programs. Additionally, most of these programs are tailored for a shorter school year than we have. So we have a little bit of wiggle room that way. But the design of the lessons are generally for a longer math period. So that's where we get a little bit of wiggle room. But in terms of the actual length of the lesson, we would like to see a longer lesson available to us.
And just as a follow-up, too, I'm not necessarily opposed to, it's a core subject, a longer math period, but let's just think that through. And then just a follow-up question for the administration. With Common Core and the rollout of all these new books and digital books, do we as a district, right now we're working with the other districts, getting their input as to what they're using. Do we as a district ever approach those other districts, the sender districts, and say, let's pool our resources? If we're going to be going to New Trier and we're going to be using the same resources, we want better discounts from the publishers. And one thing I can tell you from the business world, if you insist on it and they get a couple school districts knocking on their door, they'll give, but you have to ask the question.
You are correct, and we do.
That's all I have.
Thank you. Ms. Donnan?
Follow-up question. If this is the current schedule in terms of how the times are, as the school year this is working. When our students go to New Trier, are we seeing any deficit in their ability to adapt to a New Trier program based on having a shorter period of math program here?
Katie, you've been on the, both Katies, you've both been on the, Katie and Katie, you've both been on the committee. Have you had any feedback from the New Trier Math Committee? I don't believe you've had any negative feedback at all. No.
And in addition to that, if we look at the freshman survey that is given to the students, they do feel very prepared in the area of mathematics. I think this would be a request more on the end of, best case scenario. When you do have a program, we can differentiate, absolutely. Those additional 10 to 15 minutes being carried over to the next day is not necessarily ideal. So then the teachers, what they do is they make sure that the major components of the lesson are being addressed, and then the time taken away, quote unquote taken away, is not at all an area of weakness. But the request is more of the ideal situation.
A follow-up question then, are our students, to try and be as prepared as they need to be going to New Trier, are they getting more math homework? Are we making up the extra time by giving more assignments or longer assignments for the students to do the work at home?
Katie, that's probably a question for you. Are we making up the time by giving them more homework?
No, it's more of a quality of homework. So we want to make sure that while they might be only given 5 problems, they're really analyzing the work that they're doing, or preparing maybe for knowing the following day that they'll be starting a new discussion. So it's not necessarily more time, just maybe a deeper type of question.
And then a follow-up to that too. As we're moving into bringing iPads into these grade levels, would we look at moving into more flip classes, and so that the kids can do more of the prep work that can be viewed independently in their home as their homework, and then the time spent more on effectively with the teacher in the classroom? Is that something that you're looking at in the math department?
That's a really good question.
That's actually one of the parts that I was most excited about when I was fortunate enough to be one of the teachers at the junior high who got to go and observe the pilot program at High Crest. I watched a 6th grade math class, and I was blown away with how much work the kids were able to do kind of ahead of time to prepare themselves. That way when they did come to class, they were really engaged in the conversation that they were doing.
The resources would also support that. I think the companies have gotten smart, and a lot of the video recordings and such are designed to be that. But the other way is the teacher could also create them, and we have many teachers who could lead the way in helping anyone who's interested in doing that. And I know that the math department has expressed that interest.
Yeah, and just to follow up with that, it's obvious that every teacher and every student has a lot of demands on their time. The CRC report is, and what their expectations in terms of technology. We look at what we want in terms of our students, in terms of writing, in terms of our new social studies curriculum, between our new science curriculum. I think we have to look at our board. Are we using our time most effectively? Sometimes more time is not necessarily what's needed. It's just quality teachers in the classroom and being really effective with your time if our students are doing as well prepared as they are at New Trier.
Thank you. Ms. Alcantara.
Thank you for the presentation. I also am jumping on this time issue. And I do have some concerns about adopting this curriculum that really is designed for a longer period of time, and what can be done to try to adjust the situation that we have. And at the end of April, you presented an English language arts curriculum review timeline. And involved in that is, or will be, I assume, a close look at the way in which we have at these grade levels, 6 through 8, writing separated as a separate class from reading. And I'd like to see sooner rather than later a comparison of the different districts, center districts into New Trier, and how that time is broken down. I wish there was a way to align these timelines more closer together in time, I guess. because it seems to me increasingly that that separation is not consistent with a connected curriculum. And that amount of time in the two separate periods isn't justified, perhaps, in light of what we're trying to do across the district in terms of writing. And it concerns me to think that could be honing in on what would be a better math experience for our students. So hopefully we can get a little more insight and information on that. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Mr. Steen?
Just a real quick question. As we adopt this, what are the metrics we're using to decide whether we're doing a better job with this one or whether we like the old one better? And I understand that some of it is driven by other outside influences.
Sure. So some of the metrics are built into the programming, and so we will be experiencing those as we go through them. Additionally, the park assessments are coming down the pike, and we are not experienced with those yet, so we need to see what information we glean from those. And so right now, those are my two responses to you. And then in addition to that, we will be doing some looking at through our department to determine what the next steps are on that. So we're kind of feeling our way at this point.
Yeah, and it's a tough challenge
Yeah.
because of the park, but perhaps with the other standardized testing we can do
Mhm.
scaffold a little bit and whatnot. But
Yes.
I would love to really be thinking about, okay, how are we measuring whether this is working for our students?
Absolutely.
And it's a tough problem.
Yeah.
Ms. Levine?
Just a quick follow-up. So, but Scantron is still, we're still doing performance series next year. And does that change based on this curriculum in terms of what we're
So you will
asking
be
for
getting an update in August on sort of a revision of our assessment plan for next year, because we want to make sure that we are also focusing on instruction and instructional time and kind of balancing that out, because the park assessment takes quite a bit of time. And our spring is going to be very assessment heavy. And so Dr. Thrasher and Kathy Fleming and I have been looking very closely at our assessment cycle for next year. In fact, my colleagues around the township have all been looking at their assessment cycles. They don't all use performance series, but they use an equivalent of performance series. And so we're all kind of trying to balance it out, because we want to make sure that we don't lose our focus on instruction in the spring and forego that just for the sake of assessment. So in August, you will get an update on that and how we're balancing that all out.
The other half of her question is, how aligned is performance series to our new curriculum? Is there an alignment between them?
Performance series isn't aligned directly to the Wilmette District 39 curriculum. We wrote that based on the needs of our students, and because it comes from a nationally researched test creator, they align to national standards and then state standards. And so to our good fortune, they're able to align to the new Illinois learning standards, which we used as a framework and a guide as we'd started to develop a curriculum for the kids that we see every day. So the alignment is there, but it's not of District 39, but it is aligned to the foundations that we used.
So there has been some adjustment to performance series to reflect the new standards, and then we are adjusting. Okay, I get it. Thank you.
Other comments or questions? If not, I'll thank you for an excellent presentation and discussion. This brings us now, Dr. Lechner, to response to intervention zero period pilot.
We have a new pilot to share with the board this evening as we further develop our successful response to intervention program at Highcrest. This one-year pilot gives parents and students an option to have extra instruction before the start of the school day in what is known as a zero period. If it's successful, we'll be asking the WEA next year to formalize this program through a letter of agreement. Dr. Palzett and Thrasher have this report.
Hello. Well, we've been talking about RTI for several years, and as you know, for the past 4 years, we've been mandated through ISB to do a response to intervention service for our students. At Highcrest, the last 4 years, we've been providing this services during the school day, and students have been taking an additional class in reading, writing, or math in lieu of related arts or world languages. Well, parents have reported to us that their children really miss taking those two classes, and at times they've even declined the RTI services because they want their children to still be involved in world language or related arts. And parents have also told us that at times their children have a negative stigma attached to this service because it's very obvious when they're no longer going to art or no longer going to a world language that they are in this additional instructional class. So what Highcrest has done is they problem solved this to develop a plan that will allow students to receive intervention services and participate in the full day of the middle school experience. So we've done this through the development of the zero period. And so for the next school year, Highcrest is going to pilot this, and they're going to provide RTI interventions through this zero periods. Students qualifying for this support in either math, writing, reading, or executive functioning will have the opportunity to receive this additional time before the school day starts. Students and parents will be offered the choice of either a before school program or during the school day. The class before school will be instructed by a content area specialist, and transportation will be an option for children to arrive to school early. Now, through the introduction of this zero period, students will be able to receive additional instruction and take world language and related arts. And since students come to school early for band, vocal music, or just to meet with teachers, we're thinking that the stigma and possible public announcement of needing additional support will be reduced. Highcrest will also be using content specialists instead of the learning behavior specialists, thus providing increased availability of the LBS teachers to support students with IEPs.
So as an administrative team, we realized that this change allowed us an opportunity. In May, the administrative team went to, is this working? I feel like I'm in an old-timey phone booth. Better? Okay. In May, the administrative team attended a workshop through the District Management Council on academic return on investment. And basically, this is looking at initiatives that your district may take on through this lens of what is the true value to the district, not just monetary value, but also academic return that you're getting. As an administrative team, we saw this as an opportunity to take this zero period and apply the AROI model as kind of a test as we start to, we take on lots of initiatives here. And if this is a beneficial way of bringing some of these initiatives on board and tracking their progress and looking at true costs, this is something we may want to implement further in the future. So the AROI requires a meaningful comparison. So you'll hear the word comparison quite a bit throughout the throughout this presentation. What we did is we looked at 3 goals as they relate to academic return on investment. Our first goal is improving the student experience. And Denise talked a little bit about that stigma. She talked a little bit about kids getting the full middle school experience, which is what we want. We want kids to have those experiences of being in an art class, of taking a world language class, of participating in a wide variety of different experiences at school. And the current model really limits them. If either that related arts class or world language class. We also believe, like Denise said, it will reduce that stigma. We did do a parent survey, and that's really where we got that feedback on the stigma. Is that parents were, said, yeah, in addition to being able to take world language or related arts, he won't feel so bad about going to that math class, which I know that he needs. So as we looked at measures for improving that student experience, we're going to be doing some parent and student satisfaction surveys. And we're going to also look at the attendance of the program. One of the things that we talked about was that because it is before school? Are we going to see fewer or students choosing not to go, or lower student attendance? We'll be able to compare the student attendance on the 13-14 school year that we just finished to this next upcoming school year. Our second goal is better cost efficiency. So one of the things that AROI really focuses on is real costs. So when you're looking at an initiative, you're not saying we need to add a teacher, that's about $55,000. No, they want the exact cost of what that teacher costs, what the equipment costs, what the books cost, the real costs. And at this point, we're not real sure because we don't know the numbers of students that are going to be in the program. We know a rough estimate about sectioning and things like that. So I use sectioning as our kind of placeholder for now. One of our, as we get down to measures, I'll talk about, we'll figure out what those real costs of the program are. So again, we're going from 8 sections, and at Highcrest we have a very complex schedule, which required us to offer the RTI classes 8 times during the school day. We'll now be able to take that down to 3 sections before school. Because, again, of those complexities of the schedule, we would have sections with 1 or 2 or possibly 3 students. Again, far too small for the support that they need. So we'll be able to kind of boost some of those numbers as well to a more reasonable number of students in each section. This also, because LBSs in the past were teaching the class, it will free up those LBSs to be back in classes and be working with students on their caseload during those times. As we look at measures for better cost efficiency, we're going to look at cost comparisons from 13-14 to 14-15. Next slide here. Again, student achievement is always the main goal and outcome, and we want to obviously improve student achievement. We also want to see a greater number of students moving out of the intervention. The goal of any RTI intervention is to remediate whatever the deficiency may be, give the kids what they need, and move them out of the intervention as quickly as possible. So we're going to look at students who exit the program as one of our measures. We're also going to look at comparison. We're also going to look at comparison groups. So I have a couple of tables here that I'm going to show you here in a second, but we're looking at students who have been enrolled in the intervention in the past and the progress that the current group is making compared to those students who have had intervention experience. And then we're also going to do some comparisons to grade level peers. So Dr. Lechner likes to say, your graphic should tell a story, Dave. So as we look at this graphic here, we have some data, some student data of students who have been involved in RTI interventions. So the story that we see here is, if you look at the N, that's the number of students receiving the intervention from year to year. What we see is the number of students decreasing fairly steadily across the board from year to year. We want to continue to drop that number of students in the intervention. The next graphic, the story of the next graphic, is the progress that our students are making compared to their grade level peers. So the cells in red are the outcomes or the growth, the average growth that students in intervention are making compared to green, the whole class. If you look at 2011-12, 5th grade, the kids in the intervention made an average of 282 points growth compared to 121 points of growth by the general class. So again, we are seeing positive outcomes in the current program. We want to continue to grow and build on those positive outcomes. So as we get into this, we have some other considerations and questions that we're going to have to ask as we continue to modify our program. And the first is the performance series test really the best measure of success? When kids are going into an RTI intervention, it may be for a specific skill deficit. Performance series really is a general math or reading test, and it's testing lots of different skills. So we may want to look at assessments for kids in this RTI program that are specific to the skills that they're working on in the RTI intervention. And those may be intervention-specific skills. We have research-based programs that have their own assessments. Maybe we want to use those assessments. Maybe we want to look at student grades and what is the performance in the classroom looking like, and do we see improvement rather there? And then possibly looking at the subtests that are available within performance series. One other consideration we're also going to want to be looking at is a standardized writing assessment, which is kind of like it's like the white elephant. We're just constantly searching for that perfect writing assessment because writing is so subjective. Right now we're using our common writing assessment, but using a nationally standardized assessment would be an improvement for sure. So with that, we'll take any questions you have.
Thank you. I will lead off, Dr. Pelzet, and it concerns the second of the two tables in our board report, comparison to similar standards. And I'm wondering what takeaways there were from this 2013-14 cycle in comparing growth in the red cells to the green cells in reading and in writing, where I don't see, at least if I'm reading this correctly, I don't see the outperformance in the RTI group.
That is true. And we do see lower performance. We're also looking at 2 students who were involved in the RTI program as compared to 5 students in years past. So you have a smaller cohort group that you're working with, just less variable. And if you look at the math, the reading for the, well, it's completely, the 92 points is 1 student.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to add to this because one of the measures of our program being successful is the fact that we have fewer number of children participating in the program. We have exited children out of the program like never before. We have huge success. But then when the N gets so small, it's really hard to make those statistical comparisons. Hence, your ideas about looking at other ways to measure performance.
I understand the smaller numbers, particularly in reading, but I look over to writing assessment, N of 11 in 6th grade. So is that, do you attribute that to the subjectivity and just not quite knowing what a...
That's a tough, yeah, it's a tough assessment to use. It's the assessment that we have, so it's the assessment that we use, but that is a tough one to use because it is so subjective.
That's been true as long as
Ever,
we've had it. Yeah.
forever.
Okay, thank you. Other comments or questions from board members? Mr. Steen.
I just want to say thank you. I really appreciate the data-driven nature of the AORI approach, and so thanks for doing that. I hope to continue to see that in other reports. Thanks.
I'll echo that. Other questions or comments over here? If not, I'll thank you very much.
Thank you.
This now, Dr. Lechner, brings us to the Connected Strategic Plan Year 4 update.
Yes, and the report that you just saw is going to be connected to this one somewhat, and also the earlier report from the CRC is also connected to this report. The CRC report sets the stage for our 2014-15 goals, and this next report is the annual board update on the district and superintendent goals that were approved last fall. A portion of these goals reflect progress on CRC recommendations from the previous year, and Melanie Horowitz has this report.
It's actually Melanie Horowitz and friends with this report.
I apologize.
So tonight we'll be sharing highlights of our implementation of the 2013-14 Connected Strategic Plan, and several members of our administrative council are joining me to provide these updates. Can you hear me okay with this? Back off a little bit? Okay. So our 4 goal areas in our strategic plan are the core subject and content, connected core subject and content, which is our venue for facilitating the core instructional areas and initiatives in 21st century learning. The connected learning goal, which focuses on our professional development of our staff. The connected communication goal, which is addressing our timely, articulate, and effective ways to share information with our parent community. And our connected structural platform goal, which addresses the infrastructure, supports, and policies that ensure a supportive teaching and learning environment. And tonight we will highlight some key information from the updates in your report. So first, our curriculum maps and curriculum reviews. As part of our curriculum reviews, we are routinely updating our maps with connected elements. In the past year, reviews were completed in performing arts, social studies, and math. This summer, we are currently underway with reviews in PE and health, and also a new related arts class is being created for improvisation. Additionally, we have extended the timeline for our English language arts review through 2016, and we are in the very last leg of our Mandarin curriculum development as we prepare for a full 5 through 8 Mandarin program in District 39. Denise?
We also had a goal that looked at Second Step, and Second Step is our core social emotional curriculum, and this provides direct instruction in self-regulation and social emotional competencies to develop problem-solving strategies. The curriculum moves from foundation skills in early childhood and kindergarten, learning appropriate school behavior and being ready to learn, to skills related to academic success, to prerequisite skills for problem solving, the ability to calm down and think rationally, to then providing solutions to social and behavior conflict. This school year, Second Step was implemented for the first time all the way early childhood through 8th grade. So for some of our 8th grade students that attended Mackenzie Elementary School, since they were the first school to pilot the program, they've received Second Step instruction all the way through. It's kind of exciting. What we did do for our measure, though, was look at 8th graders and their ability to apply the skills that they learned. We also tracked student behaviors using the merit and the demerit system to measure this goal.
Our new science curriculum is fully rolled out now, K through 8, with implementation in grades 7 and 8 this year coinciding with the opening of our new science facilities at the junior high. Our measures for science, math, and English language will be reported in the fall when we do our yearly assessment report. The state has not released the ISAT information yet, but we are hoping to maintain scores for meets and exceed that our students received on the 2013 test. This is actually a rather ambitious goal, taking into account consideration for the increased cut scores and the 100% alignment on the ISAT questions to the new Illinois learning standards based on the Common Core. Our characteristics for successful learners continues to do very well embracing these characteristics. Our staff developed scenario-based assessments for our exit grades this year, 4th, 6th, and 8th graders, with a goal of 80% of students being able to identify the applicable characteristics. Our 4th and 6th graders exceeded the goal, and our 8th graders met the goal. Then, as we see increases in students who are self-advocating, we are especially proud of our students with IEPs who are increasingly participating in student-involved IEP meetings. We almost doubled our goal target in this area, with 63% of these students participating in these meetings. It's pretty exciting.
Student achievement is always the focus and purpose of our work. Ramona and Highcrest develop a goal for students that did not meet ISAT's standards in reading or math. Interventions, resources, professional development were targeted at students and their teachers. We use Scantron Performance Series testing to measure student progress. As noted on the chart, the number of students in each of the identified subgroups was small. And although all students made growth, we met the goal of 50% of the students making expected progress in 2 of the 4 groups. The report provides details of the problem analysis and the next steps that we'll be taking in this area.
A highlight of our Professional Growth Network was the first annual paraprofessional fair in the spring of 2013 when our parapros showcased their projects. So we were quite disappointed on many levels when the polar vortex disrupted our plans for the second annual paraprofessional showcase this past spring. We extended their timeline and look forward to their presentations next spring. Additionally, we hope to see the application of many staff PGN projects, although our required staff development for implementing new curriculum will clearly be taking precedence. Our staff surveys regarding professional development teachers receive for technology-enabled teaching methodologies have been very positive. We use two primary venues for developing staff in this area, Academy 39 and Institute Day sessions, for professionally developing staff, and our surveys indicate that we substantially exceed our goal of 80%, indicating that the training increased or strongly increased participant knowledge. As a result of this training, almost all of our schools almost all of our surveys exceeded our goal for meaningful use of, I was right the first time. Almost all of our schools exceeded our goal for meaningful use of PBLs or flipped learning. Our connected communication goal, and I think this is David Sue. I think I go first. This was the first time that we considered the many emails that parents get from the superintendent and the principals. We considered the frequency, the format, the venue, the content, and so forth. We went back to 2012, 2013 to establish baseline open rates and then looked for increases in 2013-14. At the district level, for the superintendent's scoop, we attributed the open rate improvements to some formatting changes that made for a more readable document. While we exceeded the target for improved for the welcome back letter, our analysis hasn't yet yielded a solid explanation for this increase. Dave and Sue Kick will talk about the building principals communication.
What we found with the building communications was that during 2012-13, our open rates were already pretty high. We had a moderate increase, however, so overall our 6 buildings have open rates of about 53%. With that being said, we don't think that the open rate was the best measure for us to look at. What we're really trying to do is have effective communication with parents in a variety of modes.
So we do, that's like a practical joke. At HMS and WJHS, parents appear more responsive to what we call standalone emails. So, for example, I've sent emails about bad apps for kids, apps you don't want to see on your kid's phone. Those generally tend to have higher open rates in the neighborhood of 60, 65, 70%. Additionally, when we send out subject-specific emails like our iPad Monday emails, those tend to have higher open rates as well. Those are all things that we're going to take into consideration and collectively discuss as we make improvements to the ways that we communicate via email.
The next area was in human resources and focused on teacher evaluation. Our training this year focused on student growth, and we partnered with the Consortium for Educational Change. They provided an in-service for our administrative team on student learning outcomes, or SLOs, which is the foundations for a growth model that can be incorporated into an evaluation system. This summer, our teacher evaluation committee members are going to be joined by administrators and some other teacher leaders in the district for a 3-day training to dive into student learning outcomes. And our goal is to not only understand student learning outcomes, how to build them, but then develop a plan to train all staff during the next school year, with our focus being on being able to implement a student growth model by fall of 2016. During the school year, we also worked on the middle school model initiative, and the focus here was on licensure issues. So we met individually with each 5th grade teacher to develop an individual plan for obtaining middle school licensure. In the state of Illinois, there's a specific endorsement to teach grades 5 through 8. It requires 6 hours of training in basically adolescent development, 10 to 14-year-old students, and learning and the best way to structure curriculum and instruction for them. And then it requires 18 hours in a content area in order to get a content-specific license. The way that our 6th through 8th grade classes are structured, it's required for 6th through 8th grade teachers, but our 5th grade teachers are self-contained and are covered under self-contained licensure. Our goal is to increase their middle school licensure and to have teachers who are subject matter licensed, and we want 100% of those by the fall of 2017. So we wanted everyone to have an individual plan on how to obtain that. Our other goal is to have 50% of them have a math endorsement on their licensure. So to that end, we worked with National Louis University to develop a partnership where they will be providing the specific math coursework beginning on-site in the fall at Highcrest Middle School to teachers. The goal being that within 2 years, they will be able to obtain their math endorsement on their license. We are also looking at the 6th grade and restructuring the teams. So beginning in the fall, we'll have an integrated English language arts block, a math specialist, and a science specialist making up the 3-teacher team that our 6th grade students will experience. And then down the road, we do want to look at 5th grade and restructuring it, but due to the licensure issue, we have to address those issues and needs first. So Highcrest will begin having some discussions about that, but we will not be able to really do any of the content level restructuring until the licensure is complete. Next up is Adam with technology.
Thank you. So nearly all deliverables have been completed, with a few in progress from the one-to-one learning program pilot. As reported at previous board meetings, while initial preparation included the pilot teachers, it didn't take long for PE, health, world language, and related arts teachers to be fully engaged in the one-to-one program and provide learning opportunities for students. Last fall, a one-to-one learning program pilot website was developed to provide information on the program. It has now evolved into our district one-to-one learning program website, where parents can see all of the communication we are sending to the community, including Dr. Palzet's iPad Mondays, our past board reports. Other important information can also be found there, like our fee options and our insurance program. While marked as completed, professional development on using the iPad as an instructional tool will continue throughout this summer and in years to come. Several summer classes have already been completed, with more planned for the summer and next school year. These courses have included Schoology, our learning management system, iBook Author to create ebooks, Apple apps, and more. For our measures, we asked students, parents, and the pilot teachers if they'd like to continue in a one-to-one program next year. 93% of the students, 90% of parents, and 100% of the pilot teachers all indicated they wanted to continue in the program. A quick update on summer preparations. At 4 today, all incoming 6th and 7th grade parents were required to indicate which fee option they wanted for next year and to bring in additional payment if they selected to upgrade the storage capacity of their iPads. Tomorrow I'll be preparing all orders, and my tech team is ready to prepare the iPads for the students in the fall. Next up is Gail Buscemi. Sorry, Dr. Kick.
There's just not the little blurb up on there. This is just a reiteration of what you already heard with the CRC update. All of the elementary buildings have established their building-based committees to explore the options for developing the learning commons. Research has been done, site visits have been conducted at schools with established learning commons, and expert consultation and partnerships have been found. We've also formed relationships with our PTA, PTOs, and funding partnerships have been sought. At the close of this current school year, all 4 elementary buildings are in various stages of this exploratory process. We continue to identify space, tools, and technology, as well as link student outcomes to our learning commons. And now it's Gail.
The district is in the second phase of the HVAC renovations. By the end of summer 2014, all schools will have a limited number of classrooms with air conditioning. In addition, all schools but one will have at least one air-conditioned large space area. Central School is slated for a large space air-conditioned area, hopefully in the summer of 2015. By the end of this summer, all schools will have the double buzz entry system to enhance security in our buildings for students and staff. We have also added the visitor management system at all of our buildings. The final phase will be implemented in fiscal year 2015. District 39 was awarded the Illinois School Security Grant that will enable the district to install new lock sets for classroom doors that will lock from inside the classroom. This project should be completed by the end of December 2014 in 5 out of 6 of our buildings. The junior high is slated for a later date.
Thank you, everyone. And now we'll be happy to take your questions, comments.
Thank you for a comprehensive presentation. Comments or questions from board members? I can lead off. Mine are for Dr. Clausen. And looking at the teacher evaluation piece, would you remind us who serves on the Teacher Evaluation Ratings Committee?
Sure. The Teacher Evaluations Ratings Committee is made up of administrators and teachers and WA leadership. So it's a cross-section. We have teachers from across representing each building, classrooms, specials, as representative as we can, and then we have several administrators on that as well.
Thank you. And then that group, together with administrators, will be completing their training/orientation on evaluations, I guess, through the summer. And then, as I read this, it looks to me that the teaching staff will get their training during the coming academic year.
Right. So our goal is to get trained in the model and then figure out the plan for how to begin training our staff. Before we develop an evaluation system, we need to have people understanding how to develop a system that they can demonstrate student growth. So we're building the foundation and the framework of that. And then once teachers are trained and understand how to use that in their classrooms, then we can fold it into the evaluation system.
Thank you. And please remind me, when the deadline comes, the state requirement, will teachers be evaluated retrospectively on prior year performance, or will the deadline hit and then they will be evaluated for the coming academic year?
That's a great question. So we have to implement by law by the fall of 2016. We have to have our plan in place, and that requires obviously the union and us to develop that collaboratively, the process. In the development of the process, we'll have to answer those kinds of questions, whether we'll use the year prior and moving forward growth, or whether we'll kind of start fresh in 2016. So it kind of is yet to be determined.
Okay, thank you. Other questions or comments from board members? Mr. Steen.
I'm just going to follow up on Mr. Flanagan's questions. Are we contemplating how we familiarize teachers with the student growth model and the kinds of metrics that we will use before they will actually be evaluated across them?
Correct. That's the idea. So we have the next 2 years for teachers to really become comfortable with the systems, measuring growth, looking at the different measurements available. We have to look at every different, academic area. Some areas have way more data available to them and assessments, and the state has some requirements on the types of assessments. So we want people to get comfortable with that. They already are doing some of that, and our principals are already being evaluated. Our administrators are already being evaluated under these kinds of systems. So we have a little bit of experience doing that, and the goal is to train, develop, and spread it to every teacher in the district.
And just to be absolutely clear, I'm 99% sure that you're saying this, but we're literally showing teachers this is what the metrics look like. We don't know which metrics we're going to use for sure yet, but here's the metrics that we might be selecting from, and here's how you did this year, and that sort of thing.
Right. So we want to have a foundation and a structure in place, and we want to choose good metrics that actually measure our curriculum and what we're doing, and that the teachers and curriculum development, many of them are in place, and where they aren't, they need to be developing those and bringing those in. So it's a lot of work to be able to implement this by 2016.
I just want to reiterate that we've been piloting this for 2 years. The principals have them through their own evaluations, and they are working with teachers teachers directly about growth models for them. Additionally, the teacher teams are experimenting right now with developing rubrics and tools, so they're well aware of this and they're already on the way.
Great, great, thank you. And by the way, overall to everyone, I think it's a terrific report. We get a lot of good reports, but I love this report. Thank you very much.
Are there questions or comments from board members? I think you covered it so thoroughly that you've answered them all. Thank you again. We are in the home stretch. Dr. Lechner, we turn now to student transportation routing.
Yes, the Transportation Department is in the process of evaluating current bus routes to improve efficiency and timeliness. Over the past 2 years, the number of routes on some bus routes has grown, causing late buses. Using a new software system, we will be building new routes from the ground up, literally. We've already built a communication plan that will help keep parents informed because we do have change afloat. But our goal is to make sure we increase our time. And Gail, sorry.
The district has just completed the second year of a 3-year contract with North Shore Transit for our regular transportation, and this is the first year of our special ed transportation. The success of pupil transportation is measured by safety first, followed by efficiency and effectiveness. Our routes are run on a very tight bell schedule. As Dr. Lechner has said, the numbers of stops on some bus routes have grown due to late registrations. This has caused numerous late buses and frequent parent notifications. Based on discussions with North Shore Transit, stops will be consolidated to reduce the number of stops a bus will need to make. The routing software has also been upgraded this year. The significant change is the mapping system within the software. This software change means that routes will need to be determined from scratch for fiscal year 15. The new routes will create a reasonable walking distance from a residence to the bus stop. As a result, it will be more important than ever for parents to quickly register their bus riders so that the routing process can begin. While August 1st is the deadline, parents will be informed through our communication plan that registering by July 15th will aid in the district's route planning. After August 1st, new bus stops will not be added.
Thank you, Ms. Buscemi. Ms. Alcantara, did you have a question?
I guess I'm just wondering, I understand that there will be some reroutings. Do we have a sense for how much additional distance may be experienced by our families in the district?
I think
in the stops?
our goal is no more than total of 3 blocks of walking. So it's, if you walk a block, it'll be 2.
Okay, I understand. Got it. And then my other just comment on transportation generally is I know that we're heading into the 3rd year of our 3-year contract. And I guess looking forward to beyond this contract, I'm wondering if the administration has given any further consideration. It wasn't something that really was aligned at the time, but in the next contract for possibly aligning our high crest and junior high schedules more consistently. I understand the logistics of that, but I also know the way in which the high crest and the junior high have evolved into more of a campus model. It seems to me really beneficial to have them more aligned.
Yeah, I would love to do that, and to do so, we get efficiencies by having 3 different bus runs. The same 3 buses go 3 times. If we have them start and stop at the same time, we will be doubling the number of buses that we need, which would be a cost.
Although it would be a shorter period of time, right? But that doesn't matter.
No, we would be leasing, or through North Shore Transit, more buses, literally.
Okay, so they wouldn't necessarily then be usable during a time period for a different district, for example.
I'm guessing not, but we should explore everything that we possibly can in that regard. And that's a question we've had for a long time. It's
Okay.
a good one.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Dronin.
Just a few. And I may have missed this. There's no early bird special this year? Or do we is there?
There was until June 13th.
Okay.
And it was a $25 discount for each rider.
Got it. And again, every year we have we go through the process of people signing up late. So just keep the communication out, keep the reminders out, because as we get further into summer, if people go on vacation, they just want to put this stuff aside. One thing, too, when you put together the schedules next year, you're talking about no further than 3 blocks walking. I think it's important to emphasize in your communications that, and I see it all over Wilmette, where the bus will stop in front of the house, and not only stop in front of the house, wait for the child to come out. And so I think that's part of the delay. So I think that's got to be enforced, that whatever it is, 2 or 3 blocks, that the child is expected to be at that stop, and the bus does not stop and pick up. I'm talking about for the gen ed students in front of someone's house.
Yeah, we agree with that, and that's a very delicate
it happens,
issue.
and I can tell you that's what, because parents that's the way they view it. And once you get into that habit and the bus doesn't stop, then what's the matter with this bus company? They're not giving my personal service anymore. So, okay.
Thank you. Other questions from board members? I think not. Thank you, Ms. Buscemi. And that brings us now to enrollment update, projections update.
Yes, our last report of the season. Before we move into summer break, we wanted to give you an update of our enrollment projections and sections planning for fall. We continue to follow the board guidelines before we break new sections, and Dr. Clausen has this report.
So we're thrilled that we're 86% complete in our registration, so our parents have gotten the word to get registered. With kindergarten this year, we have broken to 4 sections at all 4 schools. We were down, and we had been projecting down in our fall projections, and we have seen a slight uptick in our kindergarten. We have heard there's a lot of houses being sold as well, a lot of move-ins coming. So because kindergarten is a half-day program, you may notice that we're 1 student shy at Harper McKenzie of our actual breaking point. But given that it's a half-day program and parents have to make decisions about childcare, we have to make that decision earlier rather than later. And the decision was made to go ahead and break since we were teetering right there on the edge. We've been watching 2nd grade, and the report that you have shows Central as a watch. But this morning, they got the registrations and the numbers, and we just actually broke their section. So they will be a 5-section 2nd grade. It's definitely a fluid and dynamic situation as we watch. And so we'll continue to watch the 2nd grade at Ramona and continue to apply the board guidelines for that. Our current classroom staffing now then is projected to be down a half of an FTE with that break today from last year. And that is the enrollment update.
Thank you, Dr. Clausen. Questions from board members? I know we'll be talking more about this. Thank you. That, I think, concludes the information items and brings us to our second opportunity for questions or comments from audience members. I see 2 hands up. Let's start front row, Mr. Sarak.
I'll try not to overdo it here. Just a couple of things, and then a bit of a rejoinder, Dr. Luckner, I'm sorry. I say this every year, maybe twice a year. What with all the technology available through the website, I never can recall an example of a presentation of which there were 5, maybe 6 tonight that has appeared as a link on the website. And for instance, the CRC committee was represented just by 1 page in the packet, just a graphic or a picture. It would be really helpful if you want to follow along, not follow along, but to review this stuff at your leisure at home or wherever, to have links to these things, to these PowerPoint. I realize some of these change as minutes before, clearly, but I think it would be really good if these could be made available either before or after the meeting. Mr. Steen, I think you made a great point on the math curriculum. And that point was, do we ever look at what we're getting as being better or worse than the previous one? I just want to see, this is a point of personal privilege, having, well, it's been 14 years, I think, since we've had a kid here. But sometime around in the mid to late 90s, my wife was on the board. And there was, as always, there's always a controversy about the math programs. And I remember one example where I don't want to defame the company because I'm not sure which one it was, but a particular, you know who it is, what it is, a particular program that was in the process of getting deactivated, kicked out of California, was suddenly the newest and greatest thing in District 39. It shouldn't work that way. If there's clear evidence that something isn't working somewhere else, it isn't always the new thing that's working. In fact, I was going to be a math PhD at one point, but then the scholarship to the PhD program didn't come through, so that didn't work out. But I still would take my math education, dare I say, 57 years ago, starting in 7th grade. I'd take that any day over anything. And I think if I were king, I would take all technology out of the math program. Math, I mean, the graphing calculators and so forth kill understanding because you can rely on that thing to give you the answer. Okay, one more point of personal privilege. With regard to the assignment for the current events class, it says, I, the teacher, will provide you with ideas from which you can choose, but you're not limited to these. If you have a different one you want to write about, let me know, and if I approve it, you can use it. So I think I'm justified in thinking these ideas, while they may have been discussed, these came from the teacher. And frankly, it's unfortunate these letters, at least according to the chronology here, they were going to be written, but not reviewed. They would be written, brought to class, and then put in envelopes and sent off to the paper. Frankly, if one of my kids had written some of the letters, I would have been very disappointed because I think, look, I'm not blaming 7th graders for this. I would have probably tried to do the same thing. But the technology ill-served the kids here by just going to a website, apparently, because I could see the same argument across 4 or 5 letters. That's a disservice, really. It's a bad use of technology. And at a minimum, I would like, if one of my kids was in the class, I'd ask the teacher to review this stuff before it went out under my kid's name. I mean, I think the teacher, 7th graders are generally not going to come up with perfect letters. And so, you know, review them, see if they meet the standards set by the teacher, which was not the case. There was one good letter on the topic of kicking people out of office after a certain period of time. That was a very well done letter. But anyway, that's my comment on the presentation, on the letters. And I think that,
Frank?
Hello, my name is Frank Panzica. I live at 1518 Maple. A couple of items. One, I was very glad to hear that the new math curriculum really focused on the transition to New Trier. And I think I'd mentioned before, in the long run, that's one of the most important things. And I know it was highlighted in the presentation, so I wanted to say I appreciated that. A little bit more on the math curriculum in general. Every time you get into the next level of detail, which is great, there's more moving parts. And I still come back to, with that many moving parts, we really have to make sure that there's a way of making sure that somewhere in there we don't lose something. Going to a new curriculum, going to the one-to-one iPad, which is not used the same way in math as people may be comfortable with, and may or may not actually be the right way in the long run, something that I think needs a little bit more analysis. And then the information that was highlighted tonight on the fact that the amount of time this district spends on math is 50% less than some of the other major districts that feed into New Trier, all kind of tie together. And I think it's being addressed, but I really appreciate that it should continue to be addressed and really looked at, which then leads to another topic, and that's Scantron. In the past, it was talked about the value that additional test brought. It brought value for tracking progress through the year. And from personal experience, 2 of the 4 years that I have experience with that, it has showed a trend that caused conversations internal to my house and external. So that's one thing. The other is that it differentiates and it shows, especially for the children that are the high achievers, which we have a lot of in the school district, it gives a way of demonstrating the higher end movement instead of saying meets and exceeds or you know, a more gross measurement system. So when we talk about what's next, I'd appreciate hearing why it can be replaced, how we're going to achieve those other things, not that we just don't have enough time to do another test. So I'd like when we hear more in August and this fall, hearing why it can be replaced, not that it just, we don't have time for it anymore. And the other thing that's related to that, again, from the math standpoint, new curriculum, new test and replacing the ISAT. If we then also drop Scantron, there's no baseline going back from year to year. So I think that should be taken into account also. And then finally, community education, outreach, whatever. One thing that occurred to me with the all the new math, not math, all the new technology being proposed, which I think is great, that there needs to be some thought given to educating parents. Right now, I know we've had like a technology night where I learned some of the web pages that my son could go to and do some skills. But as technology grows, as the rate of change grows, as we do more of it here, the delta between what kids do, what teachers do, and what parents understand will grow. And a 1-hour curriculum night thing that's voluntary at the beginning of the year, and then through the rest of the year, if you fell behind, you don't even know that you fell behind in knowing what's going on. I think it'd be important to have a more organized way of training parents, whether it's through the PTAs or other organizations, but I think it probably needs more than 1 hour at the beginning of the year as technology becomes more integrated into the curriculum. Thank you.
Thank you. Comment, Dr.
I just want to add 2 comments. One about the length of the period regarding new tier sender districts, and again, we are very interested in looking at this topic, but half of us have approximately the same 40 to 42, and then the other half have a little bit more, some more and more. And then secondly, if we gave you the wrong impression, we are not getting rid of the performance series in any way, shape, or form. That was never intended. In fact, we are going to just adjust the schedule of implementation, which we're going to hear about in August. Anything else to add? Anything else?
We continue to feel that Scantron is a very good measure of our students' performance, and it has given us very good data over the years for tracking student performance. So no, we are not getting rid of it. It's just adjusting our schedule so that we don't have all of our testing occurring in the spring.
Are there any other members of the audience who'd like to address the board? If not, we'll move now to the consent agenda. Are there any items that board members would like to have pulled from the consent agenda? Seeing none, Ms. Schaff, I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve the personnel report dated June 23rd, 2014. I move to adopt the resolution authorizing the adoption of the prevailing rate of wages for the state of Illinois effective June 23rd, 2014. I move to approve the administrator's 2014-2015 contractual salary with aggregate increases indexed to the Consumer Price Index, CPI, and multi-year retirement contracts for 2 administrators.
I move to adopt the resolution authorizing payment for goods and services between now and the next board meeting, which is scheduled for August 2014. I move to approve the 2014-2015 revised Board of Education meeting calendar. I move to approve the accounts payable for bills listed between May 20th, 2014 and June 23rd, 2014 in the following amounts. Educational Fund, $734,013.68. O&M Fund, $323,604.14. Debt Service Fund, $132,351.25. Transportation Fund, $222,331.09, for a total all funds of $1,412,300.16. I move to approve the manual checks issued between May 20th, 2014 and June 23rd, 2014 in the following amounts. Educational Fund, $401,192.92. O&M Fund, $50,319.52. Transportation Fund, $1,675.94. Tort Fund, $992.11. For a total all funds, $454,180.49.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
By Ms. Donnan. Motion having been moved and seconded, would the clerk please call the roll?
Yes.
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 Yes. The ayes have it, motion carried. Conference items, is there any old business? Any new business? Good and welfare. If not, I'll seek a motion to adjourn to executive session to discuss specific personnel.
I move to adjourn to executive session to discuss specific personnel.
Thank you. Second by Ms. Donnan. Motion having been made and seconded, all those in favor, please indicate by saying yea.
Yay.
Yay.
Motion carries by general consent. We are now adjourned to executive session. Thank you for coming.